Okay, good. So let me just say that again for the recording. So we are having Dr. Ibrahim Okinda. He's a lecturer, a researcher in media studies. He works at Moi University, Department of Publishing, Journalism, and Communication Studies, School of Information Science, and is going to be there up to 8:30. So bear in and let's learn together. Over to you, Daktari. We can now go on. Please participate, ask questions. We want an engaging session. So karibu sana. You can put a slide share so that we can see your slides well. Slideshow. Slideshow. Yeah.
Yeah, slideshow.
Yes. So over to you. And you can be introducing yourselves on chat, members who've come, and let's learn together.
So thank you very much. And I'm happy to have been given this session on mastering the literature review. As we shall be moving on, I know I've lined a number of so many samples to share, some few activities to engage in, but it will largely depend on the time available. So when you see me move fast over some screens, it's because I'll be considering time and the significance of that particular area. More importantly, literature review is done for a variety of purposes, and it is to be found in a variety of academic works. Therefore, as we talk about mastering the literature review, I thought it wise to hinge myself on the postgraduate academic research, largely your thesis, your dissertation, whatever it may be. But generally, whatever we shall look at shall applies to those other areas where literature review is to be found. One, I know it is a struggle to come up with a research topic. And once you have come up with a research topic, the thing that your supervisor is likely to tell you is it is time to do literature review. And as supervisors, they'll tell you, we want you to do a critical literature review. And when that is said, many students, having been taught research methods, will wonder how well to do it. But remember that in whichever line we are in, the skill for literature review is very critical. And while it is critical, research shows it is also lacking among many postgraduate students. And therefore, such a webinar becomes very important to us as we share our experiences today. And basically, I have thought it wise to just taking from the theme that was in the call, to take it from the point that I'll want to answer 5 key questions. What is literature review? Why do we need it in academic research? What types of literature reviews exist? But more importantly for us, I'll be talking about the narrative approach and why it is best suited for your thesis. Then, how do you find literature? And having found the literature, how do you effectively organize it? When you have your literature and you have organized it, now how do you structure and write an effective literature review for your thesis? And eventually, we shall be focusing on the 5th question, some of the common mistakes that do happen in the course of literature review, and how better you can make your literature review to be. And as our moderator said, this is not a lecture. This is a webinar where we are all sharing experiences as a team. And therefore, we shall all be engaged throughout. So these 5 questions are the ones that are going to guide us. Moving on, just out of interest, I would want for you to reflect. I am sure you may be at different levels of your research. Maybe there are those who are even yet to come up with a topic. We have those who have come up with a topic. We have those who have maybe submitted, etc. Just as you reflect on it, if you can tell us in the chat at what stage you are currently in your literature review, that will also be important because it will help me make a judgment on which parts of my presentation I should concentrate on. After all, literature review is a broad area, but there is so much we can do within the 2 hours we have been given. So this is just an activity as a break from beginning the proper 5 questions. You can spend your 3 minutes just to type in the chat at what stage are you currently in your literature review. That is if you are doing literature review for your thesis. For example, are you at the level of searching for the literature? Are you at the level of now writing it? Are you at the level of organizing it? Maybe you have even completed your thesis or proposal, because we also do literature review both for proposal and the eventual thesis. Where are you? So just share with us within those few minutes. Since it is something that is just a reflection, I think I wouldn't say I concentrate that I wait for the next 3 minutes, but we continuously ongoing, we proceed on to share our thoughts. Now, the first question I posed was, what is literature review and why is it important in academic research? This implies that we want to define what is literature, what is literature review, what are some issues about literature review, how is literature review different at different levels of your degree, that is undergraduate, because if you are at master's, you came from undergraduate. If you are at PhD, you came from master's. So how can we tweak our literature so that there is a clear distinction in when someone reads, this is for undergraduate, this is for master, this is for PhD. And eventually then, as we complete that question, we ask, what is the significance of literature review? So these are the issues that we are going to look at. So for this introductory part, largely I am spending more time just giving an overview of the issues. Of course, as you are writing or as you have written your research proposal or your thesis, you have been engaging yourself with the literature. And in this context, we are taking literature to mean existing body of knowledge that is related, existing body of knowledge that is related to your research topic, your research question or area of study. That is very key. We don't want to say it is literature that is just any type of literature. No, it is literature that is related to your research topic, research question, or area of study. We take literature review, 1, as a finished product, and 2, as a process. So you are reviewing literature. That is a process. but we also know that it is a section within your research proposal, within your research paper, within your thesis. So we take it as a finished product. In that respect, therefore, when we talk about literature review as being part of the research proposal or thesis or paper, then we are referring to something. We are referring to that part of your proposal, thesis or research that includes extensive reference to related research and theory in the first place, one in which we find the connections between those source documents from which you have extracted the literature and your position. You take your position on the literature you have. These three issues that I have highlighted are very important.
You have to get another bag. This bag is
because literature review is not just summarizing literature. As I said at the beginning, your supervisor will be asking you to do a critical literature review. Therefore, you are engaging yourself in extensive research, both theoretical literature and empirical literature. So it is already that definition of what is literature review, when it is already a finished product, implies that you have read, you have evaluated literature, and in the second place, you are synthesizing it. That is why you are making connections between what various authors have said in their existing documents, and eventually you put your position to it. And I think as we shall be moving on, we shall discover that it is possible you may just concentrate on saying what people have already written or published for that matter, and not indulging yourself to give your voice over what they have said. Now, literature review as a process, therefore, will denote that process that helps you come up with that literature review, which we have called the finished product. So that is why literature review is both referring to a finished product, it is also referring to a process, the process of creating a review. Now, I have just structured these to be components or categories within literature review, because we have theoretical literature review, we have empirical literature review, we have contextual literature review, and foundational literature review. In some theses which we have engaged in, you will see that they begin their literature review section by talking to theoretical literature review, which seeks to establish the concepts, the theories, the models that your research is going to use or has used. But they also go further in that literature review to deal with empirical studies, where they review what other studies various authors and scholars have done on your area. But in addition to these two, which are the most common, we also have to contextualize our literature review. We are contextualizing it within particular parameters of maybe geographical place, subject scope, time, etc. And the next slides will give an indication of some of how examples of these three. And then we have foundational literature review, part of which may be theoretical, but I am calling foundational literature review to mean there are very key sources of information that form the basis of that research area you have chosen. And therefore, even anybody reviewing your work will, if he or she does not get to see such a works being cited in your work, then the reviewer gets a bit worried, because we have certain key documents or authorities in that area who you cannot miss on. Meaning, whichever topic you have chosen, you also must know who are the scholars who are really the voice of that area, so that they don't miss out in that work. Because if they miss out in your literature review, somebody gets an impression that it is missing something. But we are not saying that you are going to have divided your literature review, that now, okay, this is my theoretical. I think for the theoretical and empirical, I've seen many theses they do that. But you are not going to say, now this is my contextual place, this is my foundational literature review. No. After all, we expect your literature, if it is a literature review, if it is a chapter, is having a mix of all of this. Just for demonstration purposes, you can see, this is from one of my articles, where we are just saying that this research will use this particular theory. It should use political mobilization theory. There is a theory that is missing by so and so, and what it is talking about. That is an example of theoretical literature review, which is simply on the aspect of that we are going to use this theory and we are going to use it to establish 1, 2, 3, 4. But as we said, you also have empirical literature review, where you are bothered with what other researchers have done in the course of doing similar related studies. So like here we are now saying various scholars have established that XYZ is having an impact of media use, and we are giving those examples. But as you can see that it goes further to indicate the grouping of authors who have given us the same issue. But beyond that, we give others who, in addition to that, are adding a voice, a different voice to the same. Like in this one, we are saying we have those who have established that marital status reduce the time women have to use media. But then we have others who are saying, okay, fine, that may be the case, but radio is a secondary medium. Women can still listen to it, even when they are doing other household chores. That is now empirical. But as I said, you need also to contextualize. Where there is need, you contextualize. Like in this case, I can see several elements of geographical contextualization. We are talking about in Kenya. We are talking, I think there is a place where we're talking about Kenya. Studies recently done in Kenya have revealed that. So you see, it's even combining empirical literature and some geographical scope. And when you look at this range of studies, they are covering, I think, from 2010 to 2014. So there is also an element of time scope. There is also another element of geographical scope of saying this is relevant to Kakamega County in Western Kenya, etc. So these various contexts need to be provided. For example, you cannot be reviewing a study done in place X and you don't tell us where it was done. You are just telling us the findings. How shall we contextualize as readers of your work? Next thing, under question 1 is, we all recognize after our high school level education, we have various levels of education. And if for those who are at an undergraduate level, some programs, we engage ourselves in writing a research project. Then at masters, we are also engaged in doing research. At PhD, we are also engaged in doing research. And the literature review at these levels takes a different orientation. It may be, like in the example I use, it may be the same issue, but the way we write it is completely different. The way we do the literature review is completely different. For example, HART 2025 gives us an indication of what would a literature review for an undergraduate student be like. It is simply just demonstrating understanding and summary. But at the master's level, you are becoming more analytical and synthesizing your literature. But now at PhD, the ultimate, you are even not just analytical engaging and synthesizing literature, but you are even being very critical in your analysis, and you are positioning it within theory, and you are also showing your original contribution. And I want to use an example of the same work, but tweaked to represent how it will look like in an undergraduate research project, how the same will be looked at in a master's thesis, how the same will look in a PhD. For example, and is just borrowed from one of my works, and I sought a rewrite of the same using ChatGPT just to see what it will be to reduce it. And you can see, we say that undergraduate, somebody or that researcher is simply just summarizing literature. And indeed, this is empirical literature. And this researcher is simply just saying, these studies have been done, they have found out this. And what does that, in a simple language, what does that mean? Or what is the relevance of that to this particular study? So look at that one, simply summarizing what other researchers have done is what an undergraduate student will do. But the same piece at master's, which is a little bit higher. Now this person is moving beyond just summarizing. The person is now being analytical in engaging with the literature. And you can see beyond the same work, the first few sentences are even what the undergraduate would have done. Just tell us what studies have revealed. But the researcher is going beyond that and now saying much more by positioning his or her contribution. You can now see the next few sentences after just giving us the studies done is about what do these studies show in respect that has an implication on the current study. What do they suggest? So the same work, but now being upgraded. Now, the same piece of work can further be put at another level, critically analyzed at the PhD level. So again, you can see, fine. Remember we said we even position it within some theoretical framework. So here, the same undergraduate piece where we saw the studies that were being done, that had been done on this area, is still again presented. But this researcher is going further to attach it to one of the theories. How do these, what the studies have revealed in terms of the theory, user and gratification theory, which is in our field of media. And beyond that, the researcher who is writing this review goes further and gives some position, his or her position on the issue. He's not just telling us the theory used, applicable, the factors, but he's saying, fine, this is showing some gendered limitation underpinning the use of the media and the effect it has on political participation among women In fact, the last paragraph, the last sentence makes it even more critical, because he's saying how that is challenging, how women's access to information may be contributed, is an agenda issue, and that it may be contributing to their engagement in politics. So same piece of work, chances are, in this case, we are almost saying these undergraduate, these postgraduate student at master's or PhD, all you access the same document. But look at the way they are writing it, and the way the complexity of writing the literature review is coming on, developing from what an undergraduate will do to what will be done at PhD level. So let us be aware, or let us be aware at which level are we writing our literature review. You cannot be at master's and you are writing like an undergraduate student who is simply summarizing what other studies have shown. You can also not be at PhD and you are still writing like a master's student, just stopping at being a little bit critical by saying what people have said, the implications of that. No, position these within the existing theories or models, put your voice to it, make it your own by saying, what does this which I have established from literature, what does it mean? Why do we need literature review? Which is the last thing in my first question. Literature review is very important because it is giving the background to our research. It is showing the context of our research findings. It is the one that will even clarify to us how to define or operationalize concepts in our work. It is the one in which we position where our study is in the midst of those that already have done. After all, research is about building on the shoulders of others. We may all want to say, oh, my study is unique. Well and good, but it is based on, part of it is also based on what others have already done. And therefore, it is good for us to be made aware how far your area has really progressed. That answers our first question. Now we know what is literature. We know what is literature review. We now know its significance. And therefore, this one, I'll welcome as a way of breaking off from one-way communication within not necessarily 5 minutes, but 3. Let us ponder about it ourselves, and then I'll ask any 2 volunteers to talk out, to unmute and talk out what, now that we know what is literature, what is literature review, and what is its significance. What is one major challenge you are facing in literature review for your research? Let us take around 2 minutes of reflection, and then I'll ask any 2 volunteers to speak out. One of their challenge, major challenge, only one. So I leave this one, I give you room to reflect on it. And if we have any volunteer who is ready to just give us, based on what is literature review, and you are already engaged in it, any challenge you are facing currently, any volunteer, please, as our moderator said, it is good to be participatory. This is an engagement. After all, we have just said literature review is about engaging with what others have done. May we have any 2 volunteers who may share?
Doctor.
Yes, please share. This is Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you
Yes.
very much. My name is Alex. I'm a PhD
Oh.
student in Uganda University in Uganda.
Thank you.
Yeah, my major problem in literature review, because I'm currently working on my proposal, and I've ever been confused by scholars, especially supervisors and other lecturers, who always tell us to look at the level, in fact, the time frame, the time scope of the literature that is supposed to be used in the study. You are not supposed to go beyond a certain limit of years. That is one. Then the other issue is, the issue of proposal, where you are limited to some pages or what counts. You cannot go that far of expressing, or in fact reviewing the literature the way it has been demonstrated for a PhD level. So that one gives me sometimes, it squeezes me to the level that I sometimes look at myself as someone who is still in the master's level or undergraduate level, because I cannot go that far, because the limitation given for me in the word count or number of pages for proposal does not make me to express myself very well. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other person? That is very encouraging. And in fact, that participation makes one, even me as the presenter, to know what to do. Any other person? Just the second one who is willing?
Yes, the second speaker. My name is
Yes.
Omolola from Nigeria. And so
Yes.
the challenge I have is, so I seem to have so much information. We seem to have so much information on the internet. And the specific area that I'm working on, I'm a postgraduate student, and I'm trying to define the problem in the area of work that I'm doing. So I seem to have so much broad information. And so it's difficult getting literature on my targeted area. So I seem to have very limited information. In fact, I don't have so much of the of literature for that work in Nigeria. Many of them have been done outside the country. So I'm having a difficulty managing that.
I think those two have even expressed quite a number of issues. Our participant from Uganda has said it very well. And maybe therefore, in fact, as an entry point, I would say, before you write your literature review, you must also be aware of the institutional requirements. Because as he properly said, even in some of the universities in which we engage in Kenya, you will see the reviewers or the supervisor tell you, don't quote anything beyond 5 years, don't quote anything beyond 10 years, of course, unless you are doing a historical perspective or something. That in itself is important, and therefore you must adhere. If the institution says so, we must adhere. And also it is true, particularly in today's digital age. I know our participant from Nigeria has said there is little, and indeed is likely to be literature in some areas, and maybe showing a very good gap for the African continent. It is just a way in which we search, and I think one of the issues we will be looking at, how do we search? So some of the things you have said in themselves are the challenges that ultimately, when we shall be finishing off this webinar, we should be able to look at. What do you do? Because our Nigerian colleague is saying, I have a lot, as opposed to the Nigerian participant saying, I have just too much, and my institution is telling me to write a 20-page proposal, and my literature review therefore can only be 5 or 6 pages or 7. What do I do? That is the challenge, but initial requirements must be met. But as we move, yes.
Sorry for interrupting. This is Mercy from Kenya.
Yes.
On the part of literature review and specifically on the approach on archaic references and works, would it see it more of a challenge? but an encouragement that we have recent works that have been built on, or we have ideas that were developed maybe in the 1980s. We are having people who have come in the 1990s, in the 2000s, to improve the same idea and probably put it in more context in relation to the current issues that we are having in the world. So I would say it's not more of a challenge. If we have recent literature, it's good to appreciate that these are developmental stages from the earlier written works or ideas. On the other end side, though my hand was up, I didn't mention it. In relation to the many works of literature from all over the world, I would advise my sister from, I think she was from Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yeah, to work with a pyramid kind of thing. That this has been studied in the world. So you start from the global perspective and then narrow down to your specific country. I'm sure there's an idea that has been raised, even if it's just a clue on the area. And then now that gives you a standing ground now to invite or rather point out your gap. That this area is very critical, it's of importance, but in my country we have this issue, but it has not been tackled. So that could be an entry point from the pyramid perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And you have given the perspective, the global, the regional, and the local perspectives to it. And that is quite encouraging. I think we can move on. Now, the second question is, therefore, what are the major types of literature review? And why am I going to limit myself to the narrative approach? I know there are various literature review approaches one can use. Some of them are in themselves methods of conducting studies. And one author, this is from Nigeria, gives us quite many. I do not want to believe that at your postgraduate research, you may be engaged in these others. But what I am confident of is that you are most likely engaged in the traditional review or the narrative review, the one that gives us the state of knowledge, the state of literature in your field. And therefore, for the sake of mentioning, we know we have many, but I think I would rather give myself an emphasis on the narrative literature review approach or the traditional one. And we are saying Herman Frolick 2025 recognize that the narrative review is the best suited in this case where we are doing our academic research for purposes of our thesis writing and master's and PhD, because after all, we want to do literature review to get to know what has been done or said in the past about it. So what is the current state of knowledge? What gaps exist therein? Just as our Kenyan participant has said, yes, this is the literature. People in this region have done this. People in this country have done this. People in this locality have done this. What are the gaps therein? So you want to provide literature review that will ground your other chapters that come up, whether it is your discussion of findings, etc. And therefore, the narrative literature review, which is like you are telling a story. No wonder the word narrative. You are telling a story. Where are we in terms of all the literature in this area? What are the gaps therein? How will my study come in to fill the gaps? And using that literature review later on in your later chapters, you justify. You even maybe use the same literature to justify why you have gone to a particular methodological approach. So it is it's why I'm emphasizing the narrative literature review is the one I've just focused on in this particular presentation. Our third question, therefore, is how do you find literature for your academic research? And when you have found it, how do you organize it? I think from the few remarks from our participants who have already talked before, you could get an impression, there is a lot of information out there. What our group said, there is a lot of information out there. So how do you find it? Oh, our Nigerian participants said, I'm having problems. I'm not getting adequate literature. So how do we find relevant literature? And even now, when we have found it, how do we organize it in a manner that we can track? Because I'm gonna say that literature review is a journey. It is a journey which you begin from when you are doing your proposal up to until when you submit your final work to your university, not for marking, but now for binding or putting onto the online repository. And therefore, we continue on. In fact, one of the dangers I've seen in Kenya, because sometimes postgraduate students take longer. Maybe you're doing PhD, it was 3 years, you are taking 5 years, and you did your proposal, you did your thesis, you never kept on upgrading or reviewing your literature. By the time now you come for defense after 5 years, what you had decided, which was within the time frame the institution requires, is already obsolete. And people are saying, you are quoting archaic references. It is because you have not been reviewing it. So literature review is an ongoing thing until your work has been finally marked, you have defended it, and it's ready as also another reference material for others to use. So we need to do literature. To get literature, we need to search for it. And today, we can search it in a variety of places. Many years, we could physically go to library catalogs, but even the same library catalogs in our own institutions are now online. So you can search in the online library catalogs, bibliographic databases, whether we have many which are free. You can use search engines. And more importantly, if you are within a university or research institution, chances are they have an institutional repository, and it is good that that is where you begin. You begin with it because it will also help you know what others in your field have done within that university. Otherwise, you may think you are doing a pioneering study only to discover that a colleague in the past has done it within your own university. So let us use a variety of sources. And I get a little bit worried because I've seen this searching pattern where students who are doing serious academic research want to do the general Google search. When we have Google Scholar, I'm not saying that that is it, but I just always see that the default setting for many people to do research is Google. But the Google Scholar will be a better one because it's a bit tailored academic. So let us learn. And it's upon you to know in each one of our fields, we have databases that talk to it. And we have those ones which are free. We have those ones which your institution has paid for. We have those ones which you can buy out particular documents. So Criswell and Criswell, of course, well quoted in research books, particular mixed method research, gives us an indication that we have 7 steps in conducting literature review. You identify keywords and you focus on your topic. You then search your databases. You search databases you have identified strategically, because after all, you only want what is relevant. You prioritize and gather the key literature, and then once you have gathered this, you skim. How do you now extract the information from it? And you create a literature map, some visual representation of what your research literature will be like. You also need to prepare an annotated summary, and later on we shall be seeing some sample of something. And then you organize, synthesize, and conclude the review. Like, for example, that is just an imaginary topic I thought for this webinar. Role of social media in Gen Z mobilization for participation in the Reject Finance Bill 2024 protest in Nairobi County, Kenya. Assume that is your title, it has been approved, you are happy, your supervisor tells you you need to do literature. You need to identify what are the keywords, like social media, Gen Z, protest participation. We have the context, Nairobi County or Kenya in general. And what is the subject? The Reject Finance Bill 2024 protest. So you decide, and as it were, literary review is guided by your area of study, your aim, objectives, and research questions. So I wouldn't want things that look a bit theoretical are the ones where I'm spending limited time, because we can always read further on them. Now, Chibu now summarizes the same but in a different way and says, search for the literature, some additional things on that can make what Crystal and Crystal has told us very important. You need to search for literature. You need to know the types of literature. You need to know the searching techniques. You need to identify and select literature materials. You need to read and synthesize the content, and you need to identify the gaps. What that means, therefore, is it is not just, in fact, the other challenge you therefore will be, we now have too much and anybody can publish on the internet. So is it that anything you get on the internet is worth being quoted in your academic research? Maybe not. So even when you have done 1, 2, 3, you know 1, 2, 3, you have to identify and select. You must seek to know the authority of the sources, the credibility of the sources. And we shall look at some of these things. As I said earlier under Criswell and Criswell, to do this as such, you can use a variety of tools. You can use search engines, of course, Google in general, or you can use any one of these databases. And it is good that you must know within your area which are the topmost free, open access databases and which ones are paid up and which one has your institution subscribed to. That is very important. How can you do your literature searches? You can use the theme-centric literature search. That means it's subject-based. You can also just focus on particular concepts within your work or your title or your keywords. You may also want to decide, I want now to search material, and you can combine these approaches. I only want to search on material that is using qualitative research method or mixed method research method or quantitative. You can also use the authors that you are familiar with to focus on particular authors. And here, let me talk about something. I know what is largely available for us, the debate between the global south and the global north. Again, we are, for those who are based here in Africa, we can't also not just want to be citing majority of the works in our documents of research are only from the West, when there are also relevant materials from our own continent. We need to have all these scholars' thoughts come into being. You can also do a period-centric search. Like now, our participant from Nigeria said 10 years. So yes, I only want material published 10 years, no more than 10 years. We are in 2025, that means 2015 and above. So you can do this searches in an organized manner, and you can even mix. I could be using methodology to say I am looking for material on hashtag reject finance Bill 2024, and only those that have used qualitative research. And those ones published, of course, this one happened last year, so maybe those ones published last year, this year. The other thing will be, how therefore do you search? Now, of course, you can also do manual searching. Particularly now, when you are dealing with the print materials, what do? You have a book, you have found it, check out. You can also do citation searching. Now, one thing will be, I have found this document, this journal article to be very relevant. This journal article, at the end of it all, it has references. So I'm linking it even to many of these other methods. I'm just going to do a mix-up presentation with this and saying, yes, you are searching this document. It is very, you have found this document. At the end of it, it has a list of references. Please also look at, don't just read the document and stop there. Look at what it has cited and attempt to find those documents under that reference list of that document that may be important. We also need to know how to narrow searches, how to broaden searches. That is what many of the examples here are showing. We also need to know that you can do exact phrase searching. You see, when you just key in without putting in quotes media studies, the internet will actually search for you and get anything that is having media and anything that is having studies, but not media. And for you, you want only media studies. I am also aware, while I know many search engines have provision for dealing with these variant spellings, but who knows? Try it out. Maybe using labor, the UK English, may not be picking out some other documents using the American equivalent labor. So you find out. Maybe you can broaden your search using the asterisks. So you see, when I type in journals, it means it will give me anything that has journalism, journalistic, or journalist, among other methods that you can use to search for literature. And the emphasis here is that you are using all these techniques in an effort either to widen your scope of search because you are getting limited literature, or to narrow your scope of search because you are getting too much. Now, when you key in something and you get 1 million records, how can you even search 1 million records as part of what you should read? No. After that, you identify. Now you identify and select the materials that are relevant to your area and that indeed are credible. And the question again, which many researchers face, is that you have read thousands, hundreds of documents. So what? How can I remember what I've read at a glance? Please, as you go through your relevant literature, develop some metrics that can help you track what you have read. It could be in MS Word, it should be in Excel. Those who are IT oriented can have a database for that. For example, just a simpler one. You see, I found this document to be relevant. I quickly note in this table the author and the year of publication, the title, what was the aim of the study, which theories did it use, what methodology did it adopt, what were the key findings, and how is it relevant to my study? So you see, a table like this, and I'm saying this is a simpler one. Otherwise, there are many other things we can put into this table, depending on the needs you want in getting to know what you have read. For example, here I've just given a few: authorship, title, aim, theory, methodology, but we can expand them even to include these 15. So the ones I put in blue are the ones that I have added. Remember, you can also, in addition to author title, you can even have a quick thing to tell which gap was this work addressing, what were its objectives or research questions. If it was using a conceptual framework, or what variables was it dealing with? What is the context? Is it Kenya? Is it Africa? Is it Uganda? Is it Nigeria, etc.? Which year? Maybe you are doing, in our field of media, you are doing a content analysis of newspaper coverage of a particular thing between 2010 and 2025. You want to state that. So you can even make it more complete, more comprehensive, so that it gives you at a glance an indication of what you have read without necessarily going to the document. After all, documents are 20, 30 pages. Some are theses which are 300 pages. How can you always be going back there? But using this summary, you get an indication, and then now you can go, let me go and read my item number 2 because I want to get further information on this. So always remember, develop a literature review matrix, which can be in a table, it can be in a database form if you are in that area where you can do. So generally, again, the other thing is, what are some good practices? There are many free reference management tools. And maybe part of it will be for future webinars, if we have people who can expose students to some of them, that will be good for the future webinars, like Zotero, Mentally, so that you know how to manage references. And this complex literature we are talking about. It is an area which I can recommend for future webinar. I am not an expert in that area, but at least let us think about it, and if you can get a volunteer in the future, is okay. Also find it necessary, you must know how to do keywording, to choose your keywords, and Boolean logic, the use of and or in searching, and do social bookmarking so that the computer can the internet can remember some of your past searches so that you can always get them back. And remember, when we are doing literature review, we have those citations within the text, and at the end, you have a list of references. And this list goes to particular styles. I have highlighted 3, which are the most common: APA, Chicago, MLA, but we have many more. And because we are also engaged with the students, I still see students that I am engaged with still using the 2016 edition of APA, because in many Kenyan universities we use APA. When we have the 2020 edition, the latest, please, when you decide to do your references, both in text and at the end, ensure if you are using a particular style, you go for the latest edition that is available. And like for APA, because it's even available on the internet, we have the latest edition, the 2020 edition, which is the 7th edition. No longer the 6th edition. I still see some students do it. I know we are in a world of AI, so please, universities, research institutions have invested in both anti-plagiarism software, even with the capability of AI detection software capabilities, so they can detect when you do it. These days, I see students, you give them some work and they quickly go to ChatGPT, they quickly go to GenAI, and they just want to reproduce. No, that's not the way it is. However, since it's an area of ethics and worth talking about, you must also be aware of your institutional policy on AI. One thing that, as for me, I'm an adult, I say you can use AI, there is no problem, but use it ethically. Don't use AI. We want to see the human element. AI are machine-generated things. We want to see work that has a human face. How do you organize your literature? You can organize it chronologically, maybe from the earliest to the latest, or from the latest to the earliest. You can organize it by theme or subject. You can organize by methods, or you put all your documents using qualitative method here, those using quantitative here, those using mixed method, and even a particular branch of mixed methods here. You can also use theories. So you can organize your literature through any one of these 4 methods. And number 4, and allow me, in areas which are a bit theoretical, I move faster, but when we come to areas where we need to demonstrate and I have to illustrate, that is where I spend some time. So how do you structure and write an effective literature review? Now, all of us want to write an effective or compelling literature review, a strong one. And one of the authors gives us an indication that we use this principle, the 5 C's of literature review writing, which we are going to look at and even look at some examples. But all what I know is that in the course of writing your literature, particularly where the literature review is a chapter on its own in your thesis or proposal, then you have an introduction, you have the body, you have a conclusion, and of course, at the end of your proposal or thesis, you have your reference list. Of course, you are doing an introduction. You want to state what the purpose of the chapter and what it is covering. And now the body is where you lay out under various sections, which are guided by your objectives or research questions. And then you summarize. After all, at the end of the day, you must tell us the gaps they are in. I just thought of some imaginary outline. Like in this case, we have both theoretical and empirical, and you can see an introduction, then the theoretical review, then the empirical studies, and 231, 232, 233 are the objectives of this study. And then we have the gaps in literature, and then we have the summary. That's an indication of how an outline of a chapter can be, if it is the one in which they allow theoretical review first and empirical studies. I've seen some universities where theoretical review is just in chapter 1 and chapter 2 is purely on other issues of literature review. So that, and just for the sake of the demonstration, you can see we said the introduction tells us the purpose of the chapter, and then the sections in which it is divided. So we are saying this chapter presents a review of literature on women's political info, on women's access to political information during elections. The literature is divided into 4 major sections: first, second, third, etc. And at the end of it, we have a summary. So that is a good sample of an introduction. Very important again, I know in the course of doing the body of your literature, you have even shown us the gaps, but we need a summary of those gaps. That is why there is recognition in this particular sample that fine, a number of studies have been done on this. This is actually from one of my works. A number of studies have been done on this, but we still have gaps. And it is these gaps which you state and now eventually say, fine, given these gaps, my study seeks to bridge them by doing A, B, C, D. That is what this last sentence is all about. This study therefore adopted this to examine blah, blah, blah. So we have identified the gaps in summarized format, and then we are saying, fine, the study comes in to do, etc. And of course, now you tell us, fine, what did your literature review chapter really do? It examined this. What did it find? What gaps are there? How will they inform your literature? How have they informed the literature review or the need for conducting the research? Now, the next thing is the 5 C's, Callahan, 2014. recommends that we use some 5 C's of literature review writing: cite, compare, contrast.
Doctor, can I ask, please?
Yes, please do. By the way, since you have asked, it does not mean somebody cannot interrupt me. It is perfect with me. Yes, please do ask before we handle these 5 C's. Yes? Okay, when he gets on, he will be able to ask. So the 5 C's are a very good set of, is a very good set of elements, a set of elements that can help us organize and synthesize your research to show the current state of knowledge and the gaps of in literature and how your study seeks to fulfill them. As it were, and even in the examples we showed at the beginning, we said cite. Remember I said we have citation, the in-text citation. So you have read other people's work. You now have used it in your work. Please cite. And cite accurately. And cite using the recommended style for your university or your research institution. Because we want to acknowledge what others have done before us. It's very important that we cite. Sometimes, and it has happened, by the way, where people want to use others' content without citing. And unknown to you, the examiner of your thesis is the person who wrote that statement. Now imagine I'm marking your thesis and I'm like, I come across as a statement which really I wrote in my own work, and you have not cited me, and I'm examining your work. It will be a very bad discovery, but what is the problem? You have read other people's work, please recognize them, credit them in your work. So cite, compare. Now we have compare and contrast. You see, this literature you have read is having, people are having various arguments, they're presenting various issues, various theories. Tell us the similarities between what they are saying. In fact, even group those scholars whose ideas are the same. So that we are saying various scholars have said this, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Or fine, say so and so has said this, and I'm just using the word said loosely, that is not the language to use. So and so describes literature review to be this. X disagrees and says the opposite. That will be contrast to the next level. So in areas where we have consensus within scholarship or within studies, please bring it out. Where there are also differences, let us be made aware of those differences. And in areas where there are differences in opinion, attempt, because you also have a voice and there are reasons in literature that may justify why the opinions are different. So and so established X. This contradicts what Y found out. Chances are maybe they are dealing with a different environment. This one did the research in a rural area, another did the study in an urban area. One did it in some place in Africa, another did it in some place in the West, which has different infrastructure, maybe for that issue. So tell us the differences, but attempt to explain to us what may be underlying the differences, either using existing literature or put a voice into your work, because it's important. Critique. Now, no wonder literature review is about being critical literature review. Critique. As you go through and use other people's works, please note the strengths, the limitations, and the gaps therein. While we are building our work based on what others have said or have done before us, please, what they have done has some limitations, it has some strengths, it has some gaps. And those gaps must really come out. You must argue, you must persuade us on them. Because remember, it is the gaps that exist in this work that may be the basis for you doing your research. And you must be able to do some analytical thinking. Let us not be doing what we call descriptive writing. At best, we must seek to do in literature review critical writing or analytical writing. And every time you are giving us, fine, you have done this, you have read this, it has been said this and that, what gaps exist in, you now bring on board. You are therefore, you as ones to do this, to address this particular gap. It's very important. You need to engage critically with the material you have read and then connect, which is the one I was just talking about in a few months. Always, you have your aim, you have your research questions and objectives. Always relate your literature review to your work. You must have a connection. Fine, so and so did this. Even for me in my study, I may follow this path and do the same to find out this, or my study shall depart from what X did, and I'll take this other particular path because I want to address this question one in my study using this approach. So what issues remain unresolved? Let us know. But above all, although we have talked about the 5 C's, it does not mean that in your literature you only concentrate on one C. No. Or that you must address all the 5 C's in one paragraph. No. We expect that the totality of your literature review will really address these 5 C's. And out of just interest, but I'll not spend more time on it, you can see the first one is just, and I'm saying it will just occur. In this one, I am demonstrating cite and compare. So we are being told several studies have been done on this issue. They have found out this. And I'm citing. So that's the first C. But there is also comparison. Now, we are saying, fine, we have cited Conroe Cruz 2018, and we are comparing it to this particular current study. We can also contrast. You can see, however, there are differences between these two sets of literature that you have cited. And remember to do a critique. Like in this one, after saying what Conroe did, fine, we are recognizing Conroe did a wonderful job. He gave insights into XYZ, but there was something missing. He took a quantitative approach and never used the qualitative approach, and therefore we cannot understand the detailed reasons underlying what was established. So you see, you are almost critiquing, what was the limitation? And in fact, it is now on that basis that you will be saying, fine, given those limitations, your present study, you are connecting it to yours now, is going to use maybe a mixed methods approach to find out X, Y, Z. So just assume that was one paragraph or several paragraphs in your literature review. You can see how the 5 C's have been applied in it. Now, I began by saying that your supervisor will always tell you, please do a critical, or you have just submitted your proposal or thesis and your supervisor tells you, no, this is, or the reviewer says, this is not a critical literature review. So remember, you must be critical in your literature review. You must present logical arguments that can lead to valid conclusions. You must give evidence to support your arguments. you must support your argument using some theoretical basis and findings in past studies. So when you are writing critically, Ridley is saying, present logical arguments which lead to valid conclusions, provide evidence to support it, and support it further with theories and models and findings that exist there in literature you have reviewed. And again, the same author really goes further to say, when you are writing critically, it means you are comparing, you are contrasting. You are being strategic. You are not just quoting anything and everything just because it's available. No. You are, and I'm not saying that you are only quoting those works that support your line of thinking. No. After all, we are comparing and contrasting and showing the difference between our work and their work. Then you synthesize and reformulate the arguments. Where you agree or differ, add something to that line of confirmation or defense. And more importantly, it is not that being critical means you must now criticize, in quotes, you must now criticize everything and disagree with what the views held by other people. No. Where you want to reject a point of view already there, give reasons for your rejection, because that is important. That is why it is important, as Ridley says, don't just demolish other people's viewpoints because an idea has been said that literature review must be critical. No. After all, negative critique is not necessarily what is going to show everything. No. Just show the gaps in literature. Where you disagree with the other authors, state why. Be respectful. In fact, we say, let us differ on the idea. Have no hate for the author. Like people who are a bit sexist. Maybe this line of arguments has been presented largely by women or by men on the other side. And you just want now to disagree with them because of sexist thinking. No. But if their idea is one which you want to disagree, be respectful, choose your language wisely in rejecting or disagreeing with others, what others have already written about. I think I have done so much. Let me engage with that paragraph. This is a paragraph that is not very critical. It's not very critical as such. And let us spend some time reading it. I'm almost coming to the... Yes.
Prof. Okinda. Okay.
Yes.
Fine.
You are back.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it's a different person. I'm Fred Lally from Uganda. Before my battery runs, before my battery runs out, I would like to to indicate that we have shared our email addresses in the chat room. Please, if you could share this critical slide for our references. Yeah. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Okay.
My battery is about to run out.
Okay, thank you for your kind remarks. You see, I'm not saying that this particular paragraph is not really critical, but it's not very critical. And I know I still have almost 40 minutes to go, but it is because I am after finishing and then we begin to engage together in many of the things that I've said. That's why I want to reserve more time for that engagement. You can see this person has cited Fine Edgar 2015, did a study in Nigeria, and the study revealed this. That is good enough up here, here. But we are going further and making some, we are putting our voice to it to show the limitations. Fine, we are saying, and that's why I said respectable language. You can see we are now saying in this work that, fine, this particular work is useful to show the traditional function of the media in elections. But then it is suffering from some limitation. It is taking the voters as one large homogeneous group, which may not be the case. Now we are going further to indicate, fine, where is our study coming in, the connection? The current one is deviating from that one. That one was purely on rural dwellers in that particular election. This one is going to cover both male and female. That one covered rural residents in that part of Nigeria and Anambra Estate. This one we are now saying, oh, how is it deviating from it? That other one focused on both male and female, the one in Nigeria. This one is only focusing on women. And women, as the other one was in rural areas, this one is focusing on both urban and rural. CAW means county assembly wards in 6 consoles. So you can see we are now connecting it to ours and even showing, oh, there is this one focus on this. But still I'm saying, well and good, but that this particular paragraph is not highly critical. Look at the same paragraph having been broadened. The same, like I'll keep on saying, our undergraduate fellow will stop at saying, somebody did a study, that person found it this, or these people found this. That is good enough. And we have even gone further to give us fine. They are having a shortfall. And we are now becoming even more critical that fine. This particular study that we are now doing is focusing on women voters. And we are even bringing that this is a marginalized and underrepresented group in political communication research. And that is why we want to focus on it. So it is going further than just merely stating what the findings were and what are the limitations. No, we are going further. In fact, in this one, we are giving an indication on how we shall be able to overcome that limitation. So we need to be more critical in our literature. I think basically, before you begin writing your literature, prepare some structure, and we are calling it an initial structure because a literature review structure will keep on evolving as you keep on writing. And be guided by your aim and objectives of research questions. We are not saying your initial structure we are calling it loose because it will keep on changing as we move on. And more importantly, because we want to have your voice, you can use what some people call quote sandwiches. And I think I have an example that I'll demonstrate what are quote sandwiches that you can use to bring out your work, where no matter the word sandwich, you know what a sandwich is, that there is something put in between. That is what we are all saying. Look at this example. This, of course, these are two different imaginary cases. Like in this one, what I'm calling sandwich is that I am beginning by stating my own statement, and then I now cite. And even after citing, I go further and say, so what? No? The agenda setting function of the media has evolved with the digital environments. That is my introductory statement. Then now I'm citing what my comps and the show says. And at the end, I am reconnecting to my study and saying, fine, these particular insights are informing the present study, etc. That is all what we are saying. Even in the next one, an imaginary one, we begin with some statement, your own statement. Digital platforms have reconfigured this. Then we quote, and we end up with the last one. That is, so the quote is sandwiched between two things. The two are your own statements. One is like a stepping stone to the citation, and the other one is what have we learned from the citation. I think with that, I am on the last idea so that I leave more time for now questions and engagement with you all. So what are some of the common challenges we experience in literature review? Our participants gave that at the beginning. Some of them, they said, there is very little literature available. There is too much literature. I am squeezed with space limitations from my university. What are the common mistakes that are likely to be there? What tips do we have to survive the literature review, both as a process and as a finished product? Now, these authors did a study. It's available on the internet. Some of the difficulties that postgraduate students face when they are writing their thesis literature review. And these are actually some of the experiences we get when we are reviewing, supervising, and reviewing, examining thesis. Inability to synthesize, critique, or explain the literature. Instead, people just being descriptive, summarizing what others have said, have found out. That is not what a literature review is. We need to synthesize, we need to critique, we need to explain. And others will say, time is a barrier. The findings of this study also put some blame on some supervisors. Supervisors are also there not to do the literature review for you, but to guide you. And where the supervisors are not giving you the guidelines on how to do it, then you may debate. Maybe a supervisor never told you, in this university, of course, you may have accessed it on your own, but if you have not even accessed, he didn't tell you the format of the literature review, that in this university we do this, and then you have written all of it, and then it goes on, and it is being rejected at a different levels. So this study finding was trying to put some delegation of duty from the supervisors. But more importantly, one of the greatest challenges we are facing is identifying reliable sources. As I've said, I am sure a bigger percentage, if not almost 90-something% of us, rely on sources available on the internet. And everything on the internet is not necessarily credible. So it may be unreliable. So you must put to test. And that is why sometimes we also need to know where we are sourcing our literature from. You don't get literature from blogs and now just to say that may be authoritative. That may just be a personal opinion of somebody. The second thing that the people writing literature may have a problem appraising, synthesizing, and integrating literature within the existing literature into your work. You are reviewing other people's work, but you are putting it in your work. You must know how to do it. Sometimes we may even not know how to do the literature review. How do we integrate it within our work? As I said, we may be tempted to plagiarize. We may be tempted to use AI. That is not good enough. Your work may be, the AI is detected, software may detect you. Your university or research institution and plagiarism software may catch you and say you are beyond the minimum acceptable percentages. So let us just quote, let us do what is ethically correct. Some of the mistakes, and I think it was mentioned, over-reliance on low-quality literature. Somebody looks at your work, and the majority of the journals that you have cited are the so-called predatory journals. Wow, what is that? That is low-quality literature. Your work is lacking some fundamental literature. You see, reviewers and supervisors are people who are experts in these areas. You are doing a study on social media. Chances are your supervisor or reviewer or examiner already knows some foundational texts in that area that should not miss out. So even in whichever subject area you are going in to do your research, please ensure that you have also identified who are the authorities in that area so that you don't miss them. And please, even as we establish the authority in that area, because I'm an advocate of the global south, global north debate, let us, if we have also scholars from our continent, Africa, please include them. Don't just emphasize only those from particular, because some have done a wonderful thing. And your literature being outdated. I was engaged in some exercises today, and a student in 2025 was quoting a 2011 work and saying that according to XYZ 2011, this area has been inadequately studied. And I must admit, I laughed off myself and said, you are quoting a 2011 document in 2025 to justify that the topic you are doing is inadequately studied. That should be a joke. 14 years are too many in scholarship. But that is now what the student was using to justify. And let us not just summarize what others have said, let us synthesize and integrate it within it. And number 5, please don't include, not every content you have come across from the internet or from other sources is important to be including. You want to include everything. I think now our friend from Uganda who was saying, now I have too many and these people are telling me to do it within this number of pages. Now you have to make that deliberate decision. Fine, this may be relevant, but it is not essential. So let me remove it. If you don't have the right chapter structure and layout, you will really be in a mess. Language is another problem. I hate it when in your work of literature review, we constantly see the same way of stating something according to so and so says. I mean, vary this language, vary these phrases. So and so argues, states, illustrates, demonstrates. I mean, just change. Let not all your quotes be the ones at the beginning of your sentence. Sometimes vary, let them come at the end. So we must not be monotonous in our style. And that you have weak, I think that point number 6, which is still on structure and language, monotonous transitions. You see, you are writing paragraphs, you are writing sentences. We must see how this particular paragraph leads the other. And more importantly, your institution, your discipline has a particular style. Stick to that style. And never submit work that is having many mistakes, whether they are grammatical, spelling, or factual errors. When you do that, people begin to feel like you are not keen. So just ensure that your literature review is comprehensive, you have fully referenced everything, you are selective, both in searching and what you eventually input into your work, and you remain relevant. And relevance there is about your aim and objectives or research questions or research area. Be balanced. Like I've been an advocate of saying, okay, where literature is available both from the global north and the global south, let us have a voice from both ends. Let us be critical in our literature review. I think I've come to the end of my presentation. I don't need to share these references. I think now, because I have some 20 minutes to go, I now welcome questions, comments, but as you do that, just look at that question. What is one thing you will do differently in your literature review starting today? That is my question. But before people attempt to answer it, let us reflect on any question or comment that you may be having on my presentation. Yes, Tapiwa.
Thank you so much, Prof, for this insightful presentation. I'm Tapiwa from Zimbabwe. I'm actually a PhD candidate. I was actually impressed, maybe in terms of the matrix that you gave us, where we have a lot of information that has been published there, but at times we do have the information load to the extent that when we want to write now, you tend to forget, I got this statement. I can't remember where I got the statement, who is the author, and what exactly was it all about. I think personally, I'm just going to do my literature review differently, starting with creating the matrix such that I achieve my goal. Thank you so much for the insightful presentation.
Thank you, Tapiwa. You are already using your dilemma addressed by question. And I think it is not that even me who is saying and use this literature matrix has not doesn't suffer from this problem. Sometimes you discover you have a very good set of information, but you can't remember where you just got it from. So it is a real problem. Any other comment, question, and people's reflection on what one thing they think they'll do differently having attended this webinar? We have time. That is why I may have appeared like I was rushing, but it is because we need to engage. We have 20 minutes to go. We need to engage. I would want people to engage by commenting, asking questions, giving their reflection on one thing you will do differently in your literature review studying today. And let us, yes, Charles. I can see one of the person who has raised their hand is Charles. You can mute that. We have 2%. Let me now just move from, allow me to move from this presentation. May we have the 2 people who have raised, or actually 4 participants, or 3? Is it that you cannot mute, or what is the issue?
Mute or unmute, doctor?
Yes, unmute, sorry.
Okay. So, doctor, I could take it. I'm Irumba from Makere, Kampala.
Thank you very much, Irumba.
Thank you for this great get together with us. It's really great. So I saw you put up a slide where you seem to have combined the gaps in the literature together. I'm just wondering, would it be better that perhaps for every piece of literature I review, I bring out a gap, or critique. I bring out the gap immediately within the other piece of literature, and then, or I critique and then do a block gap examination as we did. Thank you.
No, what I meant was this. Every time you are doing literature review inside the body of your work, you must really do the critique and end up even giving us the gaps. It is only that at the end, you have identified in the course of your work, you have identified several gaps. Now you are just giving as a summary. Otherwise, by being critical, it means you are showing us the gaps at each point wherever you identify them. But now this one is a generalization, fine, which are the broad gaps that I've established. So thank you, Irumba, for raising that, because sometimes we may keep quiet and think that that is the approach. And then you use it and your reviewer or supervisor is telling you, what are you doing? So it's good when you ask. Thank you.
Now I'm here, Charles from Kenya.
Yes, Charles from Kenya.
I have bad manners. I have not forgotten to do any matrix. So I'm a bad boy. So today I've learned to do the literature, the matrix. And even if I did the matrix, goes up to only 5 columns. Now I know that I can do better. So thank you for that. I'll improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It looks like I'm getting an impression that this matrix thing is not an innovation, but is a good reminder that I've made it to many people. I've also been a victim of that. That is why I had to think about it as other scholars have recommended. Yes. Next, we are still safe with the time. 15 minutes to go. 16 in particular.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much.
this is Mercy.
Yes, Mercy from where?
Mercy again from Kenya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. We have really benefited from it. I specifically wanted to appreciate the point where you talked about the sandwiching, which I find a good insight to bring out the narrator's voice, apart from having reviewed all the literature from other people. What have they said? Rather, your voice comes in so well. When you start with your own words, you quote or you cite and then conclude with your own words. Thank you so much.
What I found that technique to be a very good one.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, another person. We
Yeah,
have.
Prof.
Yeah, can we go to? Okay, who is next?
Okay, thank you very much for the lecture. Very, very enlightening.
Thank
Can you hear
you.
me? Okay.
No, we are able to hear you.
Yes, I quite agree with the matrix thing. I've been a victim of that, having to struggle to remember where I got a piece of information to reference, to cite it appropriately. So that was one. Also the aspect of the 5 C's, how you combine all of them, having an aspect of citing, critique, contrast, and all that. So it's a very comprehensive approach, in my view. But my question now, sir, is I'm working on a title that has that looks like a 2-prong. It's about patients' education and surgical outcomes. and also perception of quality by patients. So when I'm conducting the literature review, does it mean
just a moment, you repeat it for me? I may not be an expert in that area, but I want to get the parameters. Patients.
Okay. Patient education. And outcome in surgery.
Okay.
Yes. As well as the perception of the patients about the quality of care they received.
Yes, and indeed I can see why you are saying it's quite a heavy thing.
So it's like, it looks like a two-pronged approach. That is the dependent variable. There are two, all depending on the patient education. So my question now is, while I'm conducting the literature review, the search specifically, would I have to combine these three elements? That's both the patient education, surgical outcome, and patient satisfaction. Or I can do patient education and surgical outcome separately, and also do patient education and patient satisfaction separately.
Give me some guide. You are almost giving it to me, and then you didn't complete. Which is the independent variable? Which is the dependent variable?
The independent variable is the patient education.
Thank you.
When you educate patient, whether pre-surgery or post-surgery, or even while they are on admission.
And the next two?
Then the dependent are the outcome of the surgery, well, the recovery, how good they feel, and all that.
And the perceptions.
Yeah, and then the perception of quality. That's generally regarded as patient satisfaction with the entire process. So you see that it's like I have two dependent variables and one independent variable. So when I'm conducting the literature search, am I going to combine these three together? Am I going to
generally
combine
the way I've seen, and I think there is somebody who said you do some pyramid type of searching. At first, you attempt a combination of a search that brings out the three. But you see, if it brings out limited literature, then it means you must take the independent variable against each one of the dependents and see how the results come in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes. So you broaden. I think literature searching is just about changing situations depending on what comes in, because like, for example, I may not even be bothered with the time as a parameter of limiting my search, but I've just keyed in something and I've found so much. Then I say, this area has too much. I only want the ones published in the last 5 years. So you keep on varying your searches depending on your results. Next, we have some 3 hands raised up. We still have a few minutes, 10 in particular. Yes, who is next?
Prof, good evening.
Yes, may we hear?
This is Betty. This is Betty from Zambia.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the presentation. This was quite timely. As I'm not sure if you spoke about gray literature. This is something I have been struggling with in terms of sometimes there's this information that is there, but it is not published. So how best would you advise on how to go about it? And also just the searching strategies on gray literature, Prof. How do I go about?
You are raising a very, I can call it a very interesting question. I know, particularly if which area are you working on?
So I'm currently doing my PhD on clinical neuropsychology, and I'm working on a new intervention on children who have dyslexia. So it has been a bit of a challenge, even as I'm doing this intervention. So the Grey literature, that's where my struggle is really. So I don't know, Prof, how you would guide me and the rest of my colleagues probably. I will really appreciate it. Thank you.
One, I like your thinking, because I'm not the all-knowing presenter. Can we have members also make a contribution? Because she has now let it open for us. How do we go about getting hold of great literature? And even when we get it, how do we handle it in our work? I want some response from members, as opposed to me being the all-knowing presenter, which I am not. Remember, we have just said in literature review, we are just standing on the shoulders of others. Anybody who wants to help? Our colleague from Zambia, Betty.
Can I make an attempt, please?
Please do. Please do.
Okay. I came across some websites that specifically deal with Grey literature. If you check any of this AI and ask for websites that chronicle Grey literature, it will bring out some that can be of help. Thank you.
Okay. Betty, I think you have one suggestion.
Thank you very much.
That may be useful. And I also know that there is a lot that may be unpublished, but is still relevant, not just in your area, but even for others who may be doing it. Let me not talk about your area of clinical neurology, but you can imagine a situation where in Africa, we have our traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, not documented. So what? How do you get it? And you can go and talk to these old people in the villages, not for the purpose of gathering data, but just getting to understand certain things. You move on like that. But the suggestion from our participant from Nigeria was good enough. Any other person who has some contribution to make?
Professor?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Kefa. Yes, Kefa.
Thank you.
Kefa, we have 5 minutes to go, but we shall be guided by our moderator if there is a room for an extension of a few minutes, but at least we are safe. Yes, Kefa.
I'll be very quick, and I'm also glad that the colleagues and the audience are also more educative in their question because you are writing them down. So mine is back to the Pan-Africanism, which it's something that you've touched and is always something I'm always looking out for. How do we go about on matters time frame? Because the universities will say don't use beyond 10 years. And you're talking about example. So let us use a discipline on African political philosophy, and the coining of the African unity and the fathers. So these post-colonial theorists, they spoke about something, and you want to do literature review and you're doing comparison, and you want to talk about maybe Frantz Fanon, you want to talk about Ali Mazrui, even Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Chinua Achebe's on their what are they saying? So how do we quote them, because they're an authority, but the university policy have guided that you can't use a paper maybe 1987. I mean, they will look at you. So mine is, I've always had a challenge when I'm talking about I want to quote my own, so I have to go outside and try to find some person who has written a paper maybe from Oxford on Africa, which to me it's always a slap on my face. So please guide us, Prof. Thank you.
Never. Okay, there is one thing which I will say, any university or research institution that is good enough. Surely, if remember we said there is what we call seminal literature or foundational literature. Such a literature that is so core to your area, if I was a reviewer, I would not mind, even if it is going to yesteryears, because it is so foundational that you can't do, you need just to cite it. while you build it on by quoting others who have re-engineered or discussed the issue, but you cannot fail to quote the seminal, like on the topics you have raised. You cannot fail to mention those African writers. And therefore, I would think that really this rule of the years, of course, it is good because people want currency. But there may be one or two or a few that are so seminal to your work that you will see just cite. I don't think it will be such a crime. But again, the issue will be fine. That issue may have been raised those years back. It is still important now. But chances are we may also have others who have now built on it, who now beyond that seminal quote, you are also now saying what others are saying about the same issue, anchored on the points raised early on. That is the way how you will beat it. If it's a seminal piece of work that your research can do without, surely you will quote it. And if there are any developments that others have talked to it, you now buttress it to it. I think that will be my opinion.
Prof, good evening once again.
Yes, Barak.
Yeah, I couldn't say thank you more, but let me just say thank you so much. That presentation was very insightful and interesting. And I have a request. I don't know if this is okay. If you could share the PowerPoint presentation on this portal, on the message section, so that we can be able to pick it. I don't know whether that is possible.
One, I'll get the guidance from my moderator, who are our hosts, to tell us how eventually these things are made available to participants. Okay, but maybe I know where you may be coming from, that some participants may be those who are not necessarily on an African Journal platform.
Correct.
But the moderator will guide us. And I think it is I know we still have a few hands up, but if I can go to our moderator to give direction, whether we can extend by a few minutes and answering that fundamental question, because I've been quite busy until I wasn't even checking the chat. So I even don't know what people have posted there. Yes, my good moderator.
Yes.
It is just 8:30 and I want to be a good respect of your time. So a quick one will be, if you are giving a small extension, that is one. Two, there are participants who are engaged in this. Some may be on our platform. You will tell how that will be shared. But for those who are not on that platform, how is it going to be? Give the direction first, and then you say if you are going to allow our 3 participants, unless if they haven't lowered their hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. So we can do 10 more minutes, but anyone who has to leave, please, you can. We will share the recording. I think what we can do, because I can see there could be a number of people who are not in the different groups that we invited. Maybe, Prof, you can share with me the slides, then I upload them here on the chat so that everyone can have them. Those who want can have them from the chat right now without having to wait. Is it possible you send me an email?
Oh, I'm just sending it. Even before I answer, I answer the rest. Let me attach it for you immediately.
Okay.
So that you can do the needful. I think you have given a wonderful suggestion. Let me quickly see. But remember, participants, once I've just attached this, I think there is still room. Just a minute, I think. Let me sacrifice to see where it is. I am a victim of the same literature review that I can't get. That is interesting. But let me.
Is someone writing in the slides?
Yes, that is why it's I am finding challenges, but
Sharing. Stop sharing.
let me stop sharing it first.
Yeah, so that you get it. Yeah.
Because I wasn't even seeing what is there. So thank you. In a moment, I want to ensure that I've shared it just with you before we take the last call of any hands up. Because at the end of the day, people want.
Sarah, I didn't think you put it there.
I have actually shared it. You can haven't spent time to convert it to PDF, but you may convert it for me to PDF before you share. I like it that way. Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so just convert. Now we can still engage. Let us give ourselves up to 2040 in Kenyan time. Anybody who has a question?
Yes, I have one.
And just out of interest, again, let me just post my email so that anybody who may have an issue, I'll post the two, the work-related one and this other one.
Okay, can I ask my question now?
Yes, please do. We only have up to 2040. Just ask.
Okay, my name is Senan. I'm from Kenya and I'm a master's student. First, I want to pass my appreciation. The presentation was very insightful. It has really helped me. And my question is, I'm told by my lecturers when I'm writing the literature review, I should focus on my objectives. And now you have talked about the 5 C's. So how should I go about it? Where I use the 5 C's in my literature review and I also focus on the objectives. Thank you.
Okay, just a moment. The bottom line is that it is not that you use the 5 C's in organizing your work. If you remember, it's only that I am seeing time is up. I don't want to reshare my screen. The issue is that the headings of your literature review are largely organized depending on your objectives. What we are talking about 5 C's is that when now you are writing your literature within each one of those headings, you can use the 5 C's. That is all what I'm saying. Senan, is it clear? It is not that you organize the headings of your literature review by the 5 C's. No, you develop the headings. We said, for example, you see that there's a screen which I gave where I said literature review introduction, 2.1 theoretical framework, 3.1 empirical studies, and then we said empirical studies, number 1, number 2, number 3, depending on the objectives. But in presenting your literature review within each section, that is where your 5 Z's apply. So it is not that your headings of literature review shall be 1, cite, 2, compare. No.
Okay,
have I answered you well?
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Yeah. Another person, we still have 5 minutes. I want to ensure by 2040, we set ourselves free.
1 minute, Daktari.
Yes, we still have 4 minutes.
Jerry, 1 minute.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Prof.
Wait. The slides are up. For those who are downloading, please download now so that by the time you're closing, you have them.
Thank you for that. Because once it's closed, it's closed.
Okay, as I was saying, I was trying to, my name is Jerry Gidongo. I'm a genetic counselor from Kenya.
Yes.
I was trying to answer Betty from Zambia. If the grey literature you are mentioning if you had it from a conference or someone's presentation somewhere, you can just make sure you cite them using their name and whatever presentation and whatever conference they were at. Just make sure you cite your source of information if it was a conference or a presentation you had from somewhere. That is what I've been doing so far. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for those tips. Getting some of these great literature is a nightmare, as you have said. Any other issue? We still have 3 minutes. I'm reserving myself up to 40.
Thank you so much. I am Moses Oton from Kenya.
Thank you.
A PhD candidate. So thank you so much. And one thing I want just to be differentiate is the literature review and critical literature review. What are the difference?
I'm just responding to some email to the public chat, and then you see, one, literature review is just the general term of literature review. But when we say, and we are tempted to answer that question in how do you become critical? It is not that there is literature review and critical literature review are different. No, it is just an issue that we want to add, actually, out of the need to emphasize to people that when you are doing literature review, you must be critical. We prefer to say critical literature review, so that it is not a descriptive literature review. Otherwise, I wouldn't say that literature review and critical literature review are things to be compared. No, it's only that at this stage, any literature review you do must surely be critical literature review, not descriptive literature review, which is simply summarizing what has been done. That is all what I can say. So it is analytical writing you are doing. With that, and with the kind permission.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
With the kind permission. Oh, yes.
Prof, I have a question. I'm called Andrew Kulo.
Yes, thank you.
I'm a student at the University of Nairobi undertaking a PhD program. I'm sorry I joined very late, but there's a question that I wanted to ask. I found you explaining something related with the matrix. What are the main aim of this matrix in literature review? That's the first question. And the second one, it is possible to have two mediating variables in any research, two mediating variables.
Thank you. One, and I think you will be the last one I'm responding to. The matrix is not necessarily written within your literature review, but as you gather literature, you have developed some template to help you do a quick summary of what you have read. So that, by the time you complete your PhD, you will have read hundreds and hundreds of documents. But you need to remember what you have read at a glance before you even dig into the specific in detail. So that matrix is there, where, for example, you're just capturing who is the author of this work, when was it published, what is its title, what was the aim of their study, what were the gaps, what did they find, etc. So it is not that it's to be contained within literature review. What you are saying, can we have more than one mediator variable? Yes, you can. In fact, part of the work I have done was involving two mediating variables. No, not even two, three mediating variables. So that is possible. I have done a research which was involving three mediating variables, one independent and one dependent. So thank you very much. And I think, yes, please.
Yes, Professor Bifo. My name is Sisi. I'm from Zambia. I'm asking, is there a minimum number of the studies that we can cite? Or is, okay, in summary, is there like too little or too much literature review in terms of the numbers of the studies that I can cite for a PhD?
I want to say what will guide you is you don't want to do, of course, I'm not saying you cannot do a thesis that is many pages, several thousands of pages, but really what should guide you is as long as they are talking to your area of study, and as long as they are essential, some things may be relevant, fine, but as long as they are relevant, let them be those which are essential. So I don't want to say there is a number which I can give, but whichever thing you maintain, remember, just be guided by your aim and objectives, and be guided with your institutional policy, because we may be talking about how many, yet your institution says your literature review should be this number of words. What do? We can't recommend that. But what should guide you is your aim, diversity of content. I think with that, let me rest my thinking in this presentation and allow, because I've seen quite a number of people who are not members of our good platform are asking that question. If our moderator, as you take it home, you can talk to them on how they can join. And as for me, let us continue. For those who are on the platform, let us continue the conversation on literature review. For those who have an email, I have no problem, even if I take time to answer, if there are many, I'll respond. Let us continue the conversation alive. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Wow, thank you so much, Prof. That was really brilliant, very generous. We could feel the care you have for this topic and for all the students here. So thank you very much for that. And so our club is called the Africana Journal Club. It's a club with members from different parts of African universities and some other universities abroad, people who are studying abroad, but they're Africans, non-Africans. So it's a collective space. We are also joined by members of the Rising Scholars, which is part of the INASP community. So those are the main communities we have. And then, of course, joined by the other good members that have joined us. So what we do research-related activities to grow our skills, because one of the issues that confronts many students, they're very isolated as they work on their research projects, and then they don't have a place where they can get skills, get peer support. So this is really peer support, and it's at no cost for those people who participate. So I've put the link of how you can join the club. Then one of the activities you can see on the screen is what we call the oral presentation. We do once a month. We members who want to present their research, maybe they are preparing for their defense, or maybe they are working on their proposal, and they want members to listen in and give them some feedback. So this Saturday, we're going to have this coming up. We have 4 members from hospitality, development, veterinary medicine, and molecular biology. They're given 15 minutes, and then all of us are invited to listen, to give feedback. Our philosophy is that knowledge rests with all of us. So we give feedback, we ask questions, and this has helped many members improve their paper. We even have some supervisors who come in and listen to their candidate being given feedback. So it's really a rich experience. So you're welcome. Those are the details. It will be at 8 a.m. So we will share the link on both the Africana one and the Rising Scholars. So if you register, you'll be added to the group, and then you can join. And then, of course, this is the Africana Journal Club. The organization is called Aid Africa. It's African led, and we just want to make it easier for for us to do our research with the support we have within ourselves. So thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you again and again.
May I just disrupt a bit?
Yes.
That thing of oral presentation, I haven't attended because it's a wonderful thing. Today I was listening in to some proposal defenses in my department, and I can tell you that people have a problem of these skills and confidence. And I think you are giving people a wonderful opportunity to build these skills. We had people even using Zoom is a problem, sharing something. So build the confidence of people. But looking at the response, I've seen how people want to join the forum. I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Yes, moderator and prof.
Yes.
The link to join the club, kindly, how can it be shared for one to join?
She has just shared it, I think.
Let me share again.
Please do. And my good moderator, thank you very much. Of course, when you make up a call for what people are interested in to present, again, I am willing to take up some other challenge if I look at the topics to be within my line of competence.
Absolutely, you are always welcome. We always like to have people who are ready to present so that they can share what they have. So thank you so much, and karibu sana. We always say that one of the best ways you can learn research is to teach research, to teach a topic. So even if you're here and you can teach something, whatever it is, we've had people who've presented on Mendeley, how to use Zotero, all these things, and we put up our videos on Ada Africa. I'll put the link here. That's where all these videos go, so you can be checking what we've done in the past. So I think we are done. You can now leave at your pleasure. Let me just put up the slides again for those who've just joined, so that you can have the slides with you, and put up the link to where we usually post on YouTube. The link is for joining the club where we host activities. So welcome, Jumai. Let me just, you can leave now. We will just hang in.
Yes, me, I'm just hanging in. I want to know from you now, of course, unless otherwise. Hey, how did this idea evolve? Of having this group? I know I also belong to the INSAP Arising Scholars, but I just want to know, how did you think about this? Because when I've looked at the participation going beyond borders in Africa, and I said, "Oh wow, how did you think of this?"
Okay, so my name is Aurelia Munene. I am the founder. So how it came about, I did my bachelor's in University of Nairobi. Then I went and got a scholarship and did a master's in Netherlands. And I finished within the time that was allocated. Then when I came back, I realized that many students are staying and they're not finishing their masters or their PhDs. And one of the reasons is because they are not supported. And from my experience in Netherlands, we had reading classes, we had writing classes. You are so supported until you actually learn research and finish on time. So that's why the idea of just bringing in students for us to just grow together came about. And it's been 7 years now. It's been many, many years. We were first a physical group. We used to meet at University of Nairobi. We have tea and then talk about research. But now after COVID, we became fully online. So that's how we evolved. We are not donor funded. It's purely voluntary with a few members helping who receive a little incentive. So it's a space we love and we love what we do. Yeah.
No, it's a good space. I think I encourage it and I want to fully participate in it throughout. Of course, we are just chatting as we wait anybody who wants to download one or two things. It's not that
Yes.
But
the
I've not
webinar is
seen the
over.
link.
The
I've not
webinar is
seen the
over.
link. Where is
It's
the
only
link?
that we are giving
Join
people
the
some
link.
time.
I've not seen the joining link.
In the public chat?
In public chat or WhatsApp? I've not seen that.
No.
The public chat. It's in the
In the
public.
public
Let
chat,
me just
yeah.
send it again. It's a Google form. We register
Okay.
everyone who comes so that we have an idea of who is in the group, what they need, so that we can
Okay, let me
curate
check.
some of the activities. So there is the link again.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
Is the YouTube. Yeah. Let me look for the YouTube so that in case you don't maybe in case you don't see the recording, you can just go and check on the link. So here it is. So it's called Aid Africa. So you just find it there. We have done many webinars.
I think COVID had its own problems, but it brought the world
Yes.
to better things. To better things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Me, I have no problem when you reach your time of closing up the session. It's okay. It's only that we are chatting to allow
Yes,
people.
I think we are good now. We are
Thank
good.
you
Hope everyone has the
very much.
slide. Yes, so have a good night, everyone, and see you soon.
Okay.
Mm.